Welcome one and all tonight as we talk about peace, unity, and love. Let's get it. Let me remind all of my channel supporters, please do not engage the racist trolls in the chat. Just engage with the content. Don't engage them, don't encourage them, don't speak to them, don't answer them. Let's just build with each other. Let them get lost in the chat. Welcome. Peace, unity, and love. Let's get ready. All right, well, here we go. We're going to get it in right now. Whoa. Welcome to everybody. Welcome. Something I wanted to do. Let's see if I can do this. Yeah, I'm going to remove this actually. Let me do this real quick. Here we go. That's what I wanted to do. And I wanted to add an image file. Yes. Wanted to add an image file and talk about something that is going to be coming up this Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Every Tuesday, actually, we're going to be going through a nice little Bible study series called Evidence That Demands a Verdict. And that's going to be this this Tuesday at 7 p.m. Every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Bible study series called Evidence That Demands a Verdict. And we're going to be going through the Bible is true, why the Bible is true, is Christianity true, what about all the other religions of the world, boom, boom, boom. We're going to be getting it in like that, right? And so I just wanted to welcome you to that on Tuesday. That's on Tuesday as we get that in. All right. Welcome to everybody. Let me remind you again, please do not engage with anybody who is going to be disrespectful, who is going to be childish, who is going to use racial slurs. Do not engage. If you are a supporter of this channel, I'm asking you not to engage. We don't have time for that. Okay, and tonight we're talking about peace, unity, and love. And specifically, we're talking about the Ghetto Brothers. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about some things that are coming up. Let me add this to the stage. Of course, let me add this to the stage. Yes. So this is the book that is coming out, and we actually have a release date. A release date for the book. The book is coming out, Hip Hop History, Origins and Elements, a exegetical tome of the culture by yours truly. That's going to be released December 25th, 2026. That is the official release date, December 25th, 2026. All right, so we got plenty of time, and it's going to be a really, really good book. For those of you that really want to dig deep into the weeds, Peace to the chat, peace to the chat, peace to the chat. And again, tonight we're talking about peace, unity, and love. So we don't really have time to talk about anything negative. We don't want to talk about anything negative. So again, I'm asking my channel supporters, I'm asking my channel members, do not engage with anybody that is disrespectful, that is here to get you off the topic. Let's stay focused on the topic. Let's engage with each other here tonight. All right? And so, again, December 25th, 2026, Hip Hop History Origins and Elements is the official book, an exegetical tome of the culture. All right. And then, of course, let me add this to the stage. This is something that we are currently working on right now. It is the Director's Cut 2.0, The Bronx, the home of hip hop. It is a re-edited version of the original first documentary that we did. Okay, the original first documentary that we did. Once again, all my channel supporters, do not engage. Do not engage. Refrain from engaging. I already see the racist trolls in the comments. Do not engage. If you've already engaged, I need you to remove your comment. Do not engage them. All right, let's keep going. Tonight's about peace, unity, and love. And so this is coming up, the Director's Cut 2.0. All right. So we're going to be doing that. And tonight we are talking about peace, unity, and love. And specifically, we are talking about the Ghetto Brothers. Once again, those of you that are coming in, do not engage. Just engage with the content, engage, give me your thoughts, but do not engage with the negativity. Do not engage. Tonight is about peace, the need for peace, for unity, for love in the hip hop community. That's what we need. Okay, we don't need more division. We need more peace. We need more unity. We need more love. We're going to expound on that a little bit later as we continue to dive in to the program tonight. But as we set things off, what I want to do is I want to show it's about a 13-minute video that I produced some time ago. And I want to do this, I want to show this in the name of unity, in the name of how we see the sounds from Black and brown people that were fundamental to the origins of what were known as the b-boy anthems or the break beats, and then what came after that when it came to the electro funk sound. This is a video I've featured before, and we're gonna show it again for the sake of understanding how close our ties really are. And while there are those who would try to divide us, I would say let the music, just follow the music. Follow the music and let the music tell you what it is. Okay? Respectfully to those in the chat who are visiting, who are coming in, please be respectful. Tonight, we want to focus on the power of peace, unity, and love. And again, my supporters, don't engage them. If they want to go that route, let them go that route by themselves. Don't engage them. So I want you to sit back, relax as we look at this video in an attempt to help people understand just how connected we were sonically, okay, at hip hop's beginning, and with the music that was used among the hip hop DJs. So let me go ahead and let me get that ready really quick. Let me do this. I'm going to, we're going to get this off of here. I'm going to remove from the studio. Let me go ahead and I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to share. I'm going to make this big. And once again, let me, for the sake of argument, I want you to just sit back, relax, and allow the video to speak for itself. Allow the information to speak for itself. All right? So sit back, relax, enjoy. Again, don't engage because you're not going to focus. I'm asking everybody focus on this opening video as we talk about tonight, specifically the Ghetto Brothers, peace, unity, and love. Shout out to the chat. Let me just go ahead before we get started. Let me shout some people out in here that are with us tonight. A shout out to Beats and Tapes. Shout out to iBean. Shout out to Isaiah White. Shout out to Hulk. Shout out to JG. Shout out to the world's best braider. A shout out to, let me see anybody else, to Buana. Shout out to Truth Teacher. Shout out to Microphone Prince, my man, Hip Hop History, TMP. What's good, family? I see you. Again, let's not engage with the racist trolls that are here. Let's engage with the content. All right, so sit back, relax, enjoy, and let's get ready to engage with this. Here we go. I'm sorry. Let me do this. Hold on. It's not even up. Trying to figure out. Welcome to Exploring the Latin Breakdown. Part 2, Hip Hop's Latin Heartbeat. Sponsored by Urban Exegesis Studios and presented by Dr. Derek Cologne. Apache is a famous instrumental track that has become iconic in hip-hop and breaking culture. The song has a fascinating history, starting in the 1960s, evolving through various versions and finding a lasting place in music history. Here's a breakdown of its key points. Number 1, the original, The Shadows in 1960. The first version of Apache was written by Jerry Lordan and recorded by The Shadows, a British instrumental rock group in 1960. Their recording featured a surf rock style guitar sound and reached number 1 on the UK singles chart. The song was named after the 1954 film Apache and had a distinctly Western vibe, evoking imagery of Native American culture. Number 2, the breakbeat classic, The Incredible Bongo Band, 1973. The most famous version of Apache was recorded by The Incredible Bongo Band in 1973. This version, produced by Michael Viner, is renowned for its heavy use of percussion, especially the bongos and the congas. The band band was initially formed to create soundtrack music, but their recording of Apache became legendary in its own right. The Incredible Bongo Band's version didn't achieve mainstream success at the time of its release, but it became one of the most important records in hip-hop history. The song features a drum break that would go on to be heavily sampled and played during breaking sessions in the 1970s and the 1980s. Number 3, hip-hop and breaking influence. Apache became a breaking anthem due to its infectious rhythm and powerful drum break, particularly within the emerging hip-hop culture in the Bronx during the 1970s. DJs like Kool Herc, Grandmaster Flash, and Africa Bambaataa would extend the song's instrumental breaks to keep breakers or b-boys and b-girls moving. Bambaataa famously dubbed the song the national anthem of hip-hop. The conga player on the Incredible Bongo Band's version of Apache was King Erison, a Bahamian percussionist known for his exceptional skill and dynamic performances. Here's a brief history of King Erison and his contribution to Apache. Born in Nassau, Bahamas in 1941, King Erison moved to the United States to pursue his music career. He became one of the most sought-after session musicians in Hollywood, known for his ability to play congas, bongo, and various percussion instruments. His early influences came from the Afro-Caribbean music traditions of his native Bahamas, which helped shape his distinct style. The Incredible Bongo Band's Apache is hip-hop's greatest record to date. Let's dive into some fascinating and foundational elements of hip-hop culture. The connection between Afro-Caribbean rhythms and funk, plus hip-hop is deep and rich. The sounds, such as boogaloo, habanera, rumba, guaguancó, palo, and the New York Mozambique, are all part of the diverse tapestry of influences that help shape hip-hop's sonic identity. Tracks that carry those rhythms or integrate them in some way laid the groundwork for hip-hop's development. It's also essential to acknowledge how those rhythms intersected with soul and funk, especially the drum breaks. These songs exemplify the blend of Afro-Caribbean and African-American rhythmic traditions, which were at the heart of hip-hop's evolution.
This is Ghetto Brother power, baby. From the Bronx. Ghetto Brothers. Okay, listen to that bass, man. Let's go. Baddest bass player here in the country. What about David? Burning that, bro.
moving from these breaks that contain the rhythms of funk and boogaloo, habanera, rumba, guaguancó, palo, and the New York Mozambique. It is important to understand that there were many iterations of these rhythms that were used in these records. The next wave came in the form of rap records, which you can hear in part 1 of Exploring the Latin Breakdown. These records were laced with these same Latin rhythms. We now move on to the next wave of sounds that made its way into the hip-hop ecosystem in the form of electro-funk. One can clearly hear the Latin percussive elements as the music moved from break beats to live bands to drum machines, from Apache and the rest of the traditional b-boy anthems to rap music and into the electro-funk sound. The Latin pulse has been ever present in the sonic tapestry of hip-hop culture. You know, as hip hop enters into the 1980s, the sound of the streets began to shift. While, you know, the funk and the soul sounds of the 70s, they still remained influential, but there were new technologies and new instruments, most notably, right, synthesizers and drum machines. They brought in this new era of electro funk. And this was a genre marked by futuristic, robotic beats, and they were built around this drum machine called the TR-808 drum machine, right? And it gave a whole new aesthetic to hip-hop and to breaking. The fusion of electro funk and Latin rhythms were not surprising to the people of New York. This is a melting pot, right? So we see the percussions were blended in the 70s breakbeats, but the electro funk often used the same syncopation and the polyrhythms inspired by the Latin styles. So while, you know, the sound of hip hop and breaking music evolved from the 70s to the 80s, the one thing that remained constant, this is important, was the importance of rhythm. The original b-boy anthems with their heavy Latin influences were foundation upon which the electro-funk sound was built. The beats may have become, you know, more futuristic, but the essence of the music, its ability to make people move, was the same. So as breaking grew in popularity, it spread beyond the Bronx to the rest of the world. The music also expands, right? You got tracks now like Planet Rock, and later electro funk hits became international hits, introducing a global audience to the rhythms of the Bronx. Yet, for the b-boys in New York, the connection between these new sounds and the classics like Apache, it was clear. Whether they were spinning on their heads to a bongo-driven breakbeat or a robotic sound from the 808, the Latin pulse was always there, keeping the dancers in sync with the music. So the evolution from the Latin-infused b-boy anthems of the 70s to the electro-funk sound of the 80s represents a broader story of how hip-hop grew and it changed while still maintaining its roots, the funk and the Latin go-offs. The music's rhythmic complexities and cross-cultural influences are what gave it what we call staying power, right? Whether it was the funk breaks of Apache or the robotic sounds of Planet Rock. And this proves something, that no matter how futuristic the sound became, it was always grounded in the traditions of the Bronx streets. Let me add to the stage. And so, yeah, so that was a nice piece, really wanting to show the connection of, the Latin rhythms and funk, and how this was always the case when it came to the beginnings of hip hop's culture. Um, there's one more thing I want to do to really even emphasize this a little bit more, because this video is really about the b-boy anthems, the break beats, right? And how you hear this multicultural essence within these break beats. And again, I've showed this video before. Let me encourage the chat again. All my supporters, please don't engage with any of the trolls in the chat. Please don't engage. Just let them talk what they're going to talk. What I do want to show is I want to take it a little step further. We're going to get to the Ghetto Brothers. This is all leading to the story of the Ghetto Brothers because of this unity that starts out with the break beats. But what about when it came to rap music? What about when we finally get to the rap records? Do we see this same kind of cohesion with Latin rhythms in the early rap records? I want you to watch this. Watch what I do here. Let me do something really quick. Let me find this video. Go ahead. Just stay with me for a minute. Just stay with me. Stay with me. I'm still here. I'm gonna bring this up real quick. And let me find this video real quick. And let me do this. Just stay with me for a minute. Here we go, right here. And I'm going to stop this right here. Boom. Okay. And so let me, it's not what I wanted to do. Okay. Let me do this. I'm going to add something to the screen. So let me share my screen. And yes. And so let me share this. And this is called, let me get back on the screen. This is called I'm going to just make this a full screen layout. I want you to check this out as we continue making this connection to build the case for what happens with the Ghetto Brothers. And this is obviously before, but let's keep building the case. Here we go. Check this out.
You are now tuned in to Urban Exegesis Studios with your host, Dr. Derek Cologne.
Welcome to Exploring the Latin Breakdown, Part 1, The Latin Rhythms in Early Rap, sponsored by Urban Exegesis Studios and presented by Dr. Derek Cologne. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Urban Exegesis Studios. In this opening episode, we are going to take a deeper look at the Latin rhythms that can be found in the early rap records of the late 70s and 80s. It would be impossible to cover all of the records, but we will look at the most important ones. In the documentary The Latin Breakdown, we focused our attention on the Latin flavor that can be found in the traditional b-boy anthems. Today, we will look ahead at the last element and see how that same Latin flavor was infused into the early rap records. Let's begin by giving a definition of what we mean by Latin rhythms. When we speak about Latin rhythms, we are speaking about the African-Caribbean connection that formed and shaped the sonic sounds such as rumba, guaguancó, bomba, plena, salsa, and merengue. Keep this in mind. We are not speaking about the Romance languages when we refer to Latin in this context. At the same time, it is important to understand that when we use the term Latin and their countries of origin, we are speaking about places like Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Dominican Republic. So with that out of the way, let's begin. We start with the historical backdrop of the conga drum with our good friend, Silos Congas.
If he's specifically speaking about the conga drum, the timbales, and bongo, even though all drumming stem from Africa, because it's the idea of using wood, trunks, and skin, but the drumming in Africa are more like ngoma drums, right? So the variation happened in Cuba and the Caribbean. The drums in the Caribbean are different than the drums in Africa. The conga drums, because named after the Congo, because the beats are Congolese beats, like the cha-cha and guaranco, really come from the Congo. There was a migration from the Congo, Gabon, Congo, and Nigeria.
The foundation of the b-boy anthems are twofold. The Latin percussive instruments such as the conga, the bongo, the timbale, and the cowbell, and the funk sound of the drum kit. The first example that we want to give is the first rap record that debuted in 1979 called Rapper's Delight. The opening segment of that record has a cowbell and a conga rhythm that is reminiscent of the same cadence that can be heard in Latin percussive go-offs. The inspiration for that opening is said to have come from a song called Here Comes That Sound Again by Love Deluxe. Let's listen.
Here comes that sound. There comes that sound. Again and again, again and again, again and again. Here comes that sound. Here comes that sound. Again and again, again and again, again and again. Here comes that sound. Here comes that sound. Again and again, again and again, again and again. Here comes that sound. Here comes that sound. Again and again.
This was a disco song in 1979, the same year. It also contained the Latin flavor with the disco beat. The one sound that seems to be consistent between the opening and Rapper's Delight is the bass line, which might actually be a piano. Now let's listen to the opening of Rapper's Delight. It seems clear that the rhythm that is being played has a connection to a Latin percussive go-off. Yet, the rest of the song is Good Times by Chic. What would be the reason to open the song with this Latin percussive intro? Once again, the inspiration is said to have come from the song Here Comes That Sound Again. That song is laced with a Latin feel as well. So there is no denying the Latin flavor in the opening of the first rap record called Rapper's Delight. The second example is the first rap record on the Enjoy label called Rapping and Rocking the House by the Funky 4+1 More. producer of this song and many of the songs on the Enjoy label was Pumpkin, who was a Panamanian and a Costa Rican. Next, we're going to look at Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five and their song Super Rapping.
It was a party night, everybody was breaking, the highs was screaming and the bass was shaking, and it won't be long till everybody knowing that Flash was on the beatbox going, that Flash was on the beatbox going, that Flash was on the beatbox going, and sha-na-na.
In this early rap record, you can hear the sound of the conga drums. It would seem that this was done to pay homage to the original sounds of the b-boy anthems that were heavily laced with Latin percussive instruments. As we transition from super rapping, we go into the song called We Rap More Mellow. Both of these songs came out in the year 1979, and this particular song has even more pronounced Latin rhythms than super rapping. Needless to say, this track featured a heavy Latin percussive rhythm. The next song that is of great importance is the seminal work by Spoonie G called Love Rap. In this record, we hear the conga player by the name of Pucci Costello playing the congas. It's not clear if Pucci is of Latin descent, but that is not really important. The important thing is the fact that the Latin cadence is ever present on this record.
South to the west, to the east, to the north. Come on, Spoonie G, and go off, and go off. Yes, y'all. A freak, y'all. To the beat, y'all. It's so unique, y'all.
The next record that takes us back to the essence of the original B-Boy break is Sugar Hill Groove by the Sugar Hill Gang.
Well, he's speaking on the drums and he can't stay, and he goes by the name of Tito Puente.
From salsa to hip-hop, the famous timbalero Tito Puente was called in to play on this particular track. In the same vein, Curtis Blow made a record called The Breaks, where he also featured a salsa timbale player named Jimmy Delgado. The breakdown was an ode to the original B-Boys and the anthems that they rocked to.
Well, these are the breaks. Break it up, break it up, break it up.
The final song that we want to look at is called The Disco Dream by the Mean Machine. This was a remake of the Grace Jones song called Pull Up to My Bumper. The remake was laced with Latin percussion flavor and even the first Spanish rap on vinyl.
Hey baby, you want to fool around? I want you to be my woman. Baby,
party people, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? The party people, are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready?
In this first episode, we looked at the Latin rhythms that were prevalent in the early rap records of the late 70s and early 80s, from 79 to 82 to be exact. We also gave a more concise definition of the term Latin and how it is being used in this context. Let's remember that when we are referring to Latin people, we are speaking of the African Caribbean diaspora that consists of Cubans, Puerto Ricans, Dominicans, and Panamanians. And we are not speaking about those that would be associated with the Latin Romance languages such as Spaniards. This is not to suggest that all of the musicians were of Latino descent, because they weren't. We are simply speaking of the influence that the Latin flavor brought to the early rap records. Thank you for watching, and please consider subscribing to the channel as well as becoming a channel member for exclusive content. All right. So now, with that, let's get into the meat of what we want to talk about tonight. Hold on one second. Let me just get this right here. Okay. So I wanted to begin by showing that connection of the sonic sounds of the music that would be connected to the culture that would be later on called hip hop. Of course, you know, this music comes from the 60s and the 70s, but there's something that takes place when we talk about peace, unity, and love. You know, most people associate that terminology to DJ Africa Bambaataa and the Zulu Nation, where they say peace, unity, love, and having fun. And so the idea of peace, unity, and love is not a new idea. In fact, you know, I'm going to just speak what I know. In fact, the idea of peace, unity, and love is definitely a biblical concept, right? And so this was the idea as Bambaataa starts to take little bits and pieces as he's developing the lessons from, you know, Elijah Muhammad, from the Quran, from the Bible, from other spiritual, you know, backgrounds. And he comes up with this concept. So these concepts are definitely biblical. They're definitely positive. But those were just types and shadows of the real, of what would be the real. And so when we think about peace, the first thing that comes to my mind when thinking about peace in the context before hip hop is the story of the Ghetto Brothers. And the story of the Ghetto Brothers is laced with violence, intrigue, you know, and unfortunately, you know, a murder that takes place. And we're going to talk about that tonight. As you know, I call upon the hip hop community to come to a place of peace, come to a place of unity, and come to a place of love. That's what I'm calling on. And so the Ghetto Brothers, you know, when we hear about the gangs of the 70s, this is important. There are those who would say hip hop comes out of the gang culture. I'm one of those that say that. I agree with that. I agree that hip hop comes out of gang culture, specifically the gang culture of the 70s. Okay. Now, what's important to understand is I'm not the only one that agrees with that. And I want to play a little clip from Peter Williams, who is known as Karate Pete, Black Spade from Bronxdale, who talks about hip hop and who talks about who were the originators of the culture. And I'll let him just speak. And then what we're going to do is we're going to watch the trailer to probably one of the most important documentaries about the Ghetto Brothers called Rubble Kings. Shout out to my man Microphone Prince who's watching, and I'm not going to say too much about something we got going on. And then shout out to my man Lightning Murphy from the Ebony Dukes, Topaz, who is also featured in the Rubble Kings. But let's watch a little bit about what Peter Williams says. I'm going to share this screen. Let me just share this real quick. I'm going to share. Let me make that big. All right. And let me make sure that this is up. Let me make sure that's all right. And here we go. Let's listen. This is very short, but let's listen. Here we go.
We're going to get the whole thing straight. And the whole thing about that, all right, like I said, we started the rap, we started hip hop because then it wrote. Well, not just one person started it.
It was a group. It was a group.
Everybody,
Right.
like you said,
it was a culture.
The culture. We played. They spraying the seeds all around. And not just one gang, not just a Spade, the Seven Immortal, the Ghetto Brothers, Seven Skulls. Everybody had their own little dance to it. They had little Latin stuff to it. We had little African Congo on our dance. So that's how that went. It wasn't just one person. Was one person claiming it, it's not right.
No.
It's not one culture.
No,
can't do it. And another thing about the Black Spade. The Black Spade wasn't just black. We had Hispanic, we had white, we had all people in here.
And that kind of speaks for itself. That kind of speaks for itself there. Where we see Peter Williams, Black Spade, we see Fat Mike, and they talk about the gangs and where this comes from, right? Talks about the Black Space. He talks about the Seven Immortals. He talks about the Ghetto Brothers. He talks about the Savage Skulls and the others and the others. Okay. Our topic tonight is the Ghetto Brothers. And the story of the Ghetto Brothers, of course, the Ghetto Brothers were a gang. And at some point in their story, Yellow Benjy and Karate Charlie decide to go into a different direction where they would have warlords in these gangs. Benjy, and Charlie and whoever else wanted, instead of a warlord for war, they wanted a peace advocate. They wanted a peacemaker. They wanted a peace representative, and that was Cornell Benjamin. That was Black Benjy, who was a drug addict and came into the Ghetto Brothers and started to do community outreach, community work. And there was a rumor going around that there was going to be a throwdown. And it was rumored that it was the Mongols, the Seven Immortals, and the Black Spades. And so Benjy sends Cornell. He sends Black Benjy. And he goes with some of the other Ghetto Brothers, and the story ends tragically where Black Benjy is murdered for peace. He's murdered for peace. And this leads to the 1971 peace treaty meeting, the Hoe Avenue Peace Treaty meeting, where there is footage of it, where we see Hollywood of the Savage, I believe the Savage Skulls, We see Bam Bam, the supreme warlord of the Black Spades. We see Disco King Mario of the Black Spades. And then we see all kind of, and definitely we see the Ghetto Brothers. And, you know, while Karate Charlie wanted to take this to the streets, he wanted to get revenge and he knew he could have gotten it. And as he goes to visit Cornell's mother, goes to visit Black Benji's mother, his mother reminds Charlie that my son died for peace. Enough, no more war. He died for peace. And this instituted this peace treaty. And it was from this peace treaty now, as the Ghetto Brothers are playing music and they start to play music, and they've been doing that. But now they start to throw these parties in the summers, and they were inviting the other cliques, the other gangs to come and to not remove their colors, to come, just come on, rock with us. Let's all come together. Let's all. Now, this did not mean, let me be clear what this did not mean. Okay, this did not mean that all the gang wars stopped, because they did not. This did not mean that all the gangs stopped, because they did not. Okay, remember, I'm from the Bronx, so I remember as an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old kid, 11 years old, 12 years old, and on, I remember still seeing the Outlaws with the cut sleeves, and the rockers on their jackets and the fur on the collar. I still remembered seeing that. The peace treaty was in 71. So no, it didn't stop the gangs. All the gangs didn't stop. But what it did was it brought a place where now the gangs who were with the peace treaty could now come together and celebrate together and rock together and not worry about being in somebody else's neighborhood and getting jumped or getting or violence happening. The Ghetto Brothers were responsible for that. And this is pre-hip hop. Topaz from the Ebony Dukes, my man, Lightning Murphy, told me in no uncertain terms that he believes that hip hop comes directly from not only the gangs, but from the peace treaty initiated by the Ghetto Brothers. Okay? Those are facts that we cannot argue with. All right? This happens in 71. We don't really see the culture of hip hop as we know the culture of hip hop until at least late 74, 75. So by the time Herc and Bambaataa, see, Bam already, and Bambaataa is in the documentary called The Rubble Kings. So Bambaataa is very clear about what was happening. And he takes the idea of peace, right? Because he's still also a Black Spade. He's still part of the gang life, all right? And then eventually he begins the organization, and then the Zulu Nation, and, the almighty universal Zulu Nation, and it goes on and on. But so these are, again, types and shadows of what was to come. And anybody that knows the story of the Ghetto Brothers, you cannot say that, look at what they were doing. Look at what they were doing in the streets. Look at the jams they were throwing, okay, for peace, to bring people together. Is that not the moniker of hip hop culture? Peace. Remember, Bambaataa, peace, unity, and love. Okay, so Benjy died for peace. Yellow Benjy and Karate Charlie wanted peace. Some of the gangs wanted peace. Okay, not to be afraid to walk into certain neighborhoods. But with the peace has to come unity. If there is no peace, there will never be unity. So with the peace has to come unity. So now these gangs are coming together, though they are still part of separate cliques. They're coming together under one umbrella of unity. We're not going to keep killing each other in our communities. The black and brown communities at that time were notorious for crimes against themselves, for crimes against each other. Never mind crimes against other people. This was notoriously happening. And Yellow Benjy, he said, we're not a gang anymore. We're not doing this anymore. We're not going to continue. And he wasn't just about, hear me, he wasn't just about Puerto Rican people. He was about black and brown people together. Okay, remember, Black Benjy is a black man. So Yellow Benjy being a Puerto Rican wasn't just about Puerto Ricans. He was about the community. And the community consisted of black and brown people, even white people, even Asian people. But the majority of the people in those communities in the South Bronx were definitely black and brown people. So the Ghetto Brothers story is a story of peace. It's a story of unity, and it's a story of love. It's a story of love, right? Being able to not respond. That's heavy right there. Where Karate Charlie wanted to respond. It deserves a response. We can't let this just go. Yellow Benjy said, no, it has to end somewhere. It has to end with us. We have to set the tone. We have to set the stage. We have to garner this peace. And that means we're going to have to love through this. We're not going to hurt. We're not going to hate. We're going to love. And that's the story of the Ghetto Brothers. Let me play the trailer for the Ghetto Brothers story. Let me play the trailer, and then we'll talk. And I'm going to dive into the comments as well and just see if there's any conversations that we could have, when it comes to this. And Prince, if you're there, microphone Prince, if you're still with me, I'll drop the link, man, and you can come on in, man, and we can have that conversation about how you feel about the Ghetto Brothers story, right? And again, this is not just us saying this. There's many people that are saying this. So let me go ahead and set this up real quick. The trailer for the Rebel Kings. Just give me a minute. Boom. Let me set this up. No, that's not what I want. Okay. Yeah, I want to full screen. Here we go.
The city was on the edge of bankruptcy.
The Bronx was like a world of its own.
In the early 70s, man, crime was like the major income of the Bronx.
There were gangs literally in every corner. The violence was everywhere. You could feel the tension in the air. You could see the fights across the street. You could hear the shouts in the nighttime.
The South Bronx Fort Apache was out of control. They were running through the streets. They were burning everything. I mean, pandemonium hit.
We lost a member that they viciously murdered him out there in the street. Now it's an eye for an eye.
The Bronx was going to be bathed in blood.
How rumors spread, there was not a gang in the whole of New York that was not aware of what's happening.
It was like the movie in The Warriors when the ladies on the radio talking about, hey, boppers, you got to make that move.
Let's get down to it, boppers. We're going to have to do better out there.
Peace after the treaty came instantaneous.
President Young Sinners, Vice President Young Sinners, Vice President Young Saints.
When we gang busted, we stood in the same area. Now we are able to go here, go there, meet more people, unite with people.
Here's where the whole thing started to change. Little by little, that's when the music started to come into the deal.
All hip hop came from gang culture.
Herc started something his enemies didn't want to stop. It came in the form of music.
It was more like challenging to dance now and not to fight.
You know, we made a way to have fun, and we made a way to feel like we counted, and we made a way to show the world that we actually existed.
So let me get this off the screen real quick. So the Rebel Kings, if you have not seen that documentary, let me encourage you. Again, let me be clear. While the Ghetto Brothers did foster this peace treaty, it did not mean everything was peaceful. Okay? The people who signed the peace treaty made a decision. Again, remember what we're talking about tonight: peace, unity, and love. Okay? Now remember, Cornell's mother told Karate Charlie, "My son died for peace." Right? I can't help it, y'all. I can't help it. It brings me to the biblical story. Right? God could say the same thing. My son died for peace. Right? And so I make those kind of connections that peace started. You saw the clip on the Rebel Kings trailer. It started in the most unlikely of places, within. This all starts from within, right? Peace is within. Unity is within. Love is within. And there's a cancer running through the community of hip hop right now that is about division, about hate, about separation, about name calling. And when I think of the beginning of this culture, from gang culture to the peace treaty to the Ghetto Brothers initiating this movement that they wanted to start with peace, and I see what we're doing now. And what's sad is that these are people that are not even privy to the information. They were not in New York. These are not New Yorkers. So we're listening to people who are not part of the situation. And we're feeding off of that. It's just like the gang wars. I'm calling for peace, for unity, and for love, because that's the essence of hip hop. As a Christian, that's the essence of my faith. Listen, let me just say this. I'm not a slave to the culture. I'm not a slave to anything that's going to take me away from what I know to be true when it comes to my relationship with God. And so I know that peace, unity, and love is directly connected to the Creator. And when we get away from that, this is where this bickering starts. I'm first. I did this. I did that. We did this. You didn't do nothing. You this, you that. No, that has to end. Remember that Cornell Benjamin of the Ghetto Brothers died for peace. You don't think the gangs were at each other's throat? Nah, I'm this. You ain't that. Don't come over here. You can't rock your colors. You don't think there was beef? And he decided to take a step in the right direction and die. He didn't know he was going to die, but he knew, I got to go do something. And he ended up losing his life over it. So the Ghetto Brothers story is a story of, most definitely a story of redemption. It's an identical. It reminds me of the Bible. It reminds me of the biblical story. It reminds me of the story of Jesus. It reminds me of the son coming to the gang-torn world and coming among people that did not want him around. And they would have said the same thing to him as they said to Black Benjy. When they hit him, whatever they hit him with, the pipe, whatever they hit him with. It's a definite reflection of that story of redemption. And it was the Ghetto Brothers, a former gang who reformed themselves and said, we're done. We're done with the fighting. We're done with looking at our fellow brothers and sisters, fellow human beings made in the image of God. And we want to hurt them. We want to hurt each other. That's what's happening right now within this conversation that we're having about hip hop. Right? We got to put that to a rest. Now, this does not mean you don't have your position, but there's a way to express your position. You can agree to disagree agreeably. Agree to disagree agreeably. You don't think that there were gang members that came up to Yellow Benjy and was like, we ain't doing nothing. We're not signing no peace treaty. Hey, you do what you got to do. We're going to do what we got to do. And what we want to do is change this nonsense. We want to change this madness. We got to change this. So you tell me, look at the streets of modern America today. Look at the hoods in every American city today, and you tell me what you see. You tell me if you see peace. You tell me this is all in the name of hip hop or what they think is hip hop or rap music or whatever it is. It's all that. Where's the peace? Where's the change? Where's the positive? Culture hip hop comes out of from the positive, from the negative to the positive. That was Bambaata's thought, from the negative to the positive. Where's the positive? Where is it? Us arguing back and forth about who did what, when, where, and why. Where's the positive? Where's the positive? All I see is a lot of negative and a lot of racial overtones that don't need to be in this mix. And if we're going to talk about hip hop, we got to talk about the greatest example of what it looks like to go from the negative to the positive, and that is the Ghetto Brothers, who decided to make a change in the midst of a group of people that didn't want change. And it took somebody to lose their life for peace to happen. I want you to hear that. It took somebody to lose their life for peace to happen. And then that was the wake-up call. That was the wake-up call. Again, I compare it to my faith. It took Jesus to die and then the wake-up call. But he didn't stay dead. Just like the memory of Black Benjy didn't stay dead. They weren't going to let him just be killed and it was just going to be over. No. They kept his memory alive as the ambassador of peace. That's what he was known as. So the Ghetto Brothers knew we have to keep him alive by doing the right thing, by holding these block parties, by holding these jams, by holding these get-togethers, and let all the gangs come that want to come, and let's rock together. Let's put aside this petty nonsense and let's rock together. And let's rock together. And that's the story of the Ghetto Brothers. Peace, unity, and love. Peace, unity, and love. I want to read to you. Let me read to you something. I want to read to you. Let me find something real quick. I want to read to you the description of this. Let me see something. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it this way. There got to be a different way to find. Nah, I know how to find it. Okay, let me do this. Okay. Okay, let me find this. Okay. Huh. Let me see. Yeah, here it is. And this is the description for this video. And I want you to just hear me. All right? Peace, unity, and love, a biblical concept at the root of hip hop culture. The concepts of peace, unity, and love are not merely slogans within hip hop. They are deeply spiritual principles that trace back to the Word of God. In Scripture, peace is described as a divine state of harmony rooted in God's presence. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Did you hear that? Blessed are the peacemakers. Benjy was a peacemaker. It says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Matthew 5:9. Unity flows from this peace, like I said before. Paul, the apostle, urges the church to make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. It also says that, let me see, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. Okay. And then it talks about love. Love is the foundation of both, for love covers a multitude of sins. 1 Peter 4:8. Together, these principles form the moral fabric of biblical community, reflecting the character of Christ, who reconciles and restores. Follow me. Don't tune me out right now. Just follow what I'm saying. In the streets of the Bronx during the early 1970s, these same principles found an expression in an unexpected place among the gangs and the youth who would become the architects of hip hop culture. The Ghetto Brothers, a South Bronx gang turned community organization, became a living example of peace and unity. Did you hear that? They became a living example of peace and unity. Led by Benjamin Yellow Benjy Melendez, the group helped broker the historic 1971 Gang Peace Treaty after the tragic death of a member, Black Benjy. This treaty, known as the Hoe Avenue Peace Meeting, was a turning point. Instead of fighting, rival gangs began organizing block parties, talent shows, and jams, laying the groundwork for what would soon be called hip hop. What emerged was more than just music, it was a movement grounded in biblical values. Peace brought an end to street warfare, but not totally. Unity brought together youth across racial and neighborhood lines, and love for community, love for culture and expression became the heartbeat of a generation seeking to transform pain into purpose. Hip hop, at its best, reflects this divine rhythm, a call for reconciliation, creativity, and collective healing. Long before it became a global industry, it was a ministry of peace on the pavement, a living testimony that echoes the words of Jesus, "My peace I give unto you." Powerful story of the Ghetto Brothers, y'all. Powerful story. Powerful story. Let me check out what's going on in the chat. And my man, Microphone Prince, if you are available, just get up in here and let me know if you would. I would love for you to come on and we can talk a little bit about what you feel about the Ghetto Brothers. So Prince, if you're still with me, just let me know, yo, send me the link. Prince, if you're still here, just in the comments, drop the link. I'd love for you to come on in, man, and we can have this conversation. Let me go back up a little bit, because as always, there's always going to be people who disagree, and that's okay. There's a way to disagree agreeably. We don't have to agree. We're not going to agree on everything. Yes, sir. All right. So I'm gonna drop the link for Mike Prince, so we're gonna have a little conversation. Let me get this. See, I forgot already how to. I forgot how do I drop the link? Here it is, right here. Boom. All right, got it. All right. So this is for Microphone Prince to come on in, and I want to hear his heart on the Ghetto Brothers and the story, because he's working on something. Paste that in. So Prince, I just dropped the link. Come on in, man, and let's have that conversation. Peace to everybody in the chat. And I say that not as a metaphor. I really mean this is a time for reconciliation, y'all. This is a time for us to stop the bickering, and to learn the lesson from Black Benjy, from the Ghetto Brothers, that this was all started for peace. But right now, there's no peace. There's no unity. There's no love. It's just bickering. I got my man right here, Mike Prince. What up?
Yeah, what up, boy? How you doing?
Doing well.
Chilling.
That's good, man.
Nice podcast, brother. Nice information, man.
Man, yeah, man. I can't get it all in, but we try to get in what we can, and there's so much to share, right? There's so many people we could add to the table that could have this conversation, like Topaz, but I know that this has been something that's been on your heart, and just share with us, man, what you feel about the story of the Ghetto Brothers.
I mean, the story is crazy. When I first figured out or heard that the Warriors was based on that, I was like mind blown. Now they Hollywood, so they turned it into Cyrus was trying to take over the city and all that. They gotta do what they do in Hollywood. But the fact that it was based on somebody real, and just the Rubble Kings, like, it just showed me like all the gangs had blacks and Puerto Ricans. It was territorial. It wasn't racial.
Right.
And all that feeds into hip hop. Hip hop came from the gang culture. So if we were all together in the gang culture, now all of a sudden we were separated when hip hop came along. So it's like a tragedy that love from brothers, and specifically from Puerto Rican brothers to a black brother. It wasn't like another Puerto Rican got killed. Like they were Puerto Ricans, like, it probably wasn't even an issue. I mean, his name was Black Benjy, but it wasn't an issue if he was black or not. It was just my brother. You know what I'm saying? Like that part of it wasn't even important. But when you look at it, it happened to be a black brother that died. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, and there was just one little discrepancy that I think that I had with what you said. When they decided not to go to war, there were groups that weren't with it. You know what I'm saying? And they kind of imposed their will. They were like, all right, well, they enforced the peace through the threat of war. Like, all right, well, and they were like, who's you? Well, we're. He started running down all the names of the gangs that were already committed to the truce. So, for that to be the thing that starts breaking down the blocks, now all of a sudden you can go over there. They can come over here. It's not war. You can rock your colors. And the Ghetto Brothers started doing their jams, and they used to put the Puerto Rican flag and the Black Power solidarity flag right next to each other. Look,
that's right. That's
Like
right.
that wasn't something that just trickled down through history and just happened to happen. They specifically, you know, went to love and peace and unity in the face of war. And to me, that's like the soil that was able to grow the seeds of hip hop. You know,
Right.
I'm not saying they were a hip hop group. I'm just
Right.
saying the peace that they created was the thing that made everybody relax. And I used to always hear the stories like, breakdancing is the way to battle and rapping is the way to, and, it always sounded weird to me. But when I heard the Rubble Kings and the Ghetto Brothers story, I was like, wow, that makes sense. That's exactly what it was. The breakdancers, let's do something different besides kill each other. I still want to get at you. I'm an MC. I still want to take your head off.
Right.
Lyrically.
Right. Right.
So.
Yeah, I remember like even in the Bronx as a kid, I was part of some stickball teams. So we would play stickball, and this is during the time of me seeing breaking initially, and as a little kid, and we play sewer cap to sewer cap on the block, and we had a team, and there was another team down the block, and teams from other parts of the Bronx would come, and we would go to them or go to Echo Park and play against them. I had older guys that were part of the team. But sometimes when you lost the game, there would be a fight. They would throw down.
Yeah.
Over a stickball game. Now, so make no mistake, I guarantee you at some of these battles, whether it was a B-boy battle, whether it was an MC battle, whether it was a DJ, I guarantee you there was fights at the end of these things sometimes.
Yeah.
Because, you could take somebody out the streets, but you can't take the streets out of the person, right? That's the whole, adage. But yeah, man, I think it's a beautiful story, bro. And it's a story of redemption. It's a story of love. Really, man, real. That's
And
what
like,
love looks like, bro.
but nothing like you were just saying, like nothing is absolute.
Right.
Doesn't mean all the gangs stopped and was kumbaya, but the majority. And it doesn't mean that every battle didn't end in it was the majority. It doesn't mean that there wasn't racist Puerto Ricans from the kind of the older generations, and it doesn't mean that there wasn't racist black people, but it just wasn't everybody.
Right.
Like it was racism, it was war, it was all kind of stuff. But hip hop is what changed that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. And even thinking about not just the gangs of the Bronx, but the gangs of New York. You remember, like, we're just talking about the Bronx, but you still had gangs in Brooklyn, in Manhattan, in Harlem, that was still running wild.
The threat of war about Benjamin Cornell was citywide. That wasn't just the gangs in the Bronx, but they were calling gangs from other boroughs.
Right.
That's why it was such a big deal.
Right.
Like they had news reporters were parked outside waiting to see what was going to happen. You know what I mean? Like this was like a big thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I meant that the stopping of gang violence. Because I've heard some stories that almost make it seem like all the gangs were dead in the whole city, and I'm like, nah. I know that without even knowing the story. Like I said, seeing what I saw, I know I still saw gangs in 75, 76, 77, 78. I still saw them walking around with their colors, and I was afraid of them. I saw them with the MC boots and I'm like, so. Yeah.
It's funny how at some point those gangs went to cruise. Like instead of having the MC jackets, they would have the sweatshirts. Like we was around 169th around Townsend Avenue, Jerome Avenue. So my cousins and stuff were affiliated with Suicide Crew. So they had like the yellow thing with the black letters, Suicide Crew, with the felt letters. So it was, to me, it was like that was like a byproduct of the gangs and the music, and turned into, so yeah, of course there was violence. There were shootouts. I got shot in my leg running from somebody getting shot. You know what I mean? But, like I said, everything shit isn't absolute. You know what I mean? It's okay, now all of a sudden this piece of, but it was enough, to make a huge impact and allow hip hop to grow,
And that's what I mean when I say, like, when we go from gangs to crews, I remember the crews too. You know, the '80s really. You know, you see, you know, HBO in the Bronx, Zulu,
Yeah.
the
Untouchable.
Ballbusters, all these different crews, and these are like hip hop dudes, the majority of them, and they would wear beads. Like a
Mhm.
lot of the crews would rock the beads with the plates on them, and
Yep.
these dudes were like, you know, they were carrying guns, and they're still doing the street stuff.
Hmm.
So even though, and this is where I get kind of grieved a little bit, that even though, you know, it was meant to change it for good, it still points to it's the individual, right? It's still who you are inside, right? If you still wanna, it don't matter jam or no jam, hip hop or no, you know, and like I said, you know, when you watch, there's a YouTube channel called Hood Vlogs.
Hmm.
I watch it from time to time. And this is a dude who goes to different hoods all over the country, Brooklyn to Atlanta to Jersey to, you know, Cali. And man, it just never ceases to amaze me how in these hoods, how wild these young dudes are, man. And it's like, now they could be doing that for the camera too. Who knows, right? But I'm like, man, what is it gonna take? You know, and then they're bragging about, you know, their boys that they just lost, and this one died and that one died. And I think about Benjy. I'm like, here's a dude that died for peace, and we're celebrating death.
Yeah, man. It's like every generation has to learn. You know that's why, you know, in a way, you know, I appreciate what you're doing, and you know, I'm trying to work on things too, because you know, we can't control all the violence that's going on. We can't control the division. We can't control. I see people in the comments, you know, like, you are a very respectful brother, and you're talking about peace and love, and your God, you know, and there's people, you know, who just want to throw things at that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I just block everybody and I keep it moving.
Yeah.
But you know, at the very least, what we could do is tell the stories of what already happened, because these kids, these young black kids, are growing up now thinking that we're tethers and we're liars and we're just this and that. And it's like, it's a shame. You know what I mean? Like, I feel sorry for them. Some of these, like the older ones who are talking stuff, you know, they're lost cause. But the young kids who are out there disrespecting us and talking crazy, I feel more sorrow for that, because they don't know. If I was a young black kid in America and my elders were telling me this, I would be defending that shit too. You know, I would be mad that people trying to take my culture. You know what I'm saying? So you and I, the very least we could do is at least tell the stories. And yeah, the documentary is out there,
Right.
but I didn't see it for a long time. And a lot of people. So what I've been trying to do is put it into the music. So you know, I appreciate you bringing me on, you know, to kind of talk about this, because you know, so we basically did a version of the Rubble Kings in a song. It's a long song. It's maybe about 6 or 7 minutes. So my man Y'all Z produced it. And it's actually 3 separate beats. Like, there's 3 different beat changes, and in each of those beat changes, there's a break beat that comes in. There's scratching, and we're basically telling just the whole story of how the gang started, why they started, what the politicians were doing, and it tells the whole story all the way through to the inception of hip hop.
Right.
And so, you know, I'm long-winded sometimes, so pardon me. But this song it took so long, you know, it took, you know, 120 bars or whatever to cram it all into, you know, 6 or 7 minutes. So I was like, you know, nobody wants to listen to me for 7 minutes. So I started thinking of how I could break that up, and how I was able to break that up was by reaching out to a couple of OGs in the hip hop community, and so that they come in and they're doing different parts, you know. So it's you know, it's like a collaboration now, and like, I'm real proud to say that one of the OGs I got is Mr. Schick from Mean Machine. His brother hasn't wrote a rhyme since wepa wepa inama. And he blessed me, you know what I'm saying? He's on the joint for 8 bars, and he went out of his way to make sure that he sent me the joint, and he paid for the studio time where he was at to do it. So, you know, and you know, like I try to tell the story real quick. Like back in the days, my mother was Americanized. My father, I never met my father. My mother married a dude that came fresh off the boat from Puerto Rico, didn't speak English. So he was mad racist. So he kind of became the face of the Puerto Rican culture to me. So I saw it as a threat. He was smacking me around, you know what I mean? Like all kind of stuff. So I kind of ran to the street to get away from him, but kind of the whole Puerto Rican thing. You know what I'm saying? So I ran to hip hop. And that's where, and all my black brothers embraced me and loved me and made me a part of their family. And we did shows and we did everything. And then one day I hear Mean Machine and they're killing, you know, the whole crew, they're going back and forth. And then all of a sudden this guy starts rhyming in Spanish. And I was like, wow. And it wasn't like a dude just trying to rhyme in Spanish. He was organically authentic New York, Puerto Rican slang. He was saying all the things that I heard my mother say and all the things that I heard my neighbors say. You know what I'm saying? So that's my brother, Mr. Schick. I got him. I got the founder of the Low Lives, Thurston Howell III. My brother, he's, if you know anything about the Low Lives, it's a worldwide movement. They got him in Japan. They got him in Australia. You know what I'm saying? And he's a very, very important voice, you know? And kind of the crown jewel is I got my brother, L.A. Sunshine from the Treacherous 3. You know what I'm saying? He gave me like 16 bars, and he was there at every step of the way. Like, yo, what do you want me to do? You want me to change that? You want me to do this? You know, whatever. Like going forward, whatever you need, you know. And so, you know, we would drive into the studio, and I told him, I was like, yo, I really, really appreciate you. Your voice is very important on this. And he was like, why? I haven't made a record, you know. And I'm like, nah, bro. Like you. They had like the third record that came out. You know what I mean? It was like Sugar Hill Gang, Spoonie G, and then the Treacherous 3. You know, and they're icons. You know what I'm saying? I was like, nah, bro. And you as a person from that era, you're lending a lot of credibility to this project by lending me your voice. You know what I'm saying? And when you hear the track, you heard it. When you hear the track, you hear L.A. Sunshine. I was like, wow, that's L.A. Sunshine from the Treacherous 3. Like you hear the way he rhymes and his style, his voice. And that's another one. He hasn't touched the mics, you know, since 85. Like me, they do shows, you know. They do shows, but he hasn't recorded anything. So to get those 3 guys on the track and my DJ Cut Master Ecstasy, it's gonna be love. And I thank you for hooking me up with Topaz because you know we got some things possibly in the works. We're gonna have a meeting in the Bronx Historical Society next Thursday. And you know he's going to try to help me out to see if we get some of this music and stuff into the museum.
Yeah, man.
Thanks, man.
It's real. Yeah, you know, and that's what this is about, man. This is about, you know, and you know, I can understand how people can view what I'm doing or what you're doing, what any of us are doing as Latinos, and say, you know, well, you're just trying to tell, you know, either you're telling a false story or you're trying to tell your story. And the only reason is because of the fact that how many times in history, and as a history teacher, I know this, that there's people in history that we never knew about that did some incredible things. And quiet as it's kept, I've been looking at history books for well over 15 years. And I've seen the progression of those history books. And many times, early history books, you might have a couple of honorable mentions of African Americans in history. And I would be like, come on now, I know better than that. I know that there were way more people that did some incredible things, but it's gotten better, right? So I think about our story, and in the story of hip hop, we didn't document anything.
Mhm.
We didn't write anything down. Not really. Not at the beginning. So we had other people sort of write books who were not from the community. These are outsiders, and I don't mean it like that. I mean, these are people who are not from the culture and they did fantastic books, fantastic works. That's not what I mean. But I think it's time for the hip hop community or us, whether that's Latinos, African Americans, Caribbeans, to tell their stories as a lived experience. And so, I apologize to anybody who gets mad at that and say, I'm a nationalist, or that's not, and anybody that knows me, they know my heart, they know what I'm about. So I'm not about that. So,
Yeah, but this is like an era where people think that they could just say something and then now it's true. Like,
right.
I could just sit here and watch you showing all these receipts and all these connections and all these similarities, and then just say, you just this.
Right.
And to a certain extent, that's the world that we live in now. You know what I mean? Like, Trump can say whatever he says, and whoever wants to believe Trump believes Trump. So people just want to, believe whoever they want to believe, and they think that they can pick and choose. You know what I'm saying? But so it's good that we're documenting, but we also have tapes, and we have recordings, and we have videos. You know what I'm saying? Like I got tapes and battles from my crews from 82, 83. You know what I'm saying? So whatever, nobody can tell me what I saw when I walked out of my door every day on 162nd Street and Sherman Avenue, and I looked around and I saw my brothers around there and stuff, and what we were doing and what was going on. No young kid or no racist older dude is gonna come and tell me what I saw and what I didn't see. Oh, it wasn't like that. There was no that. I know what I know. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And that's the beauty of the receipts that you talk of, right? So I love what Randy said this to me one time. He said, a lot of people are making claims, but what can we show and prove, right? So what we could show and prove is what we do have, right? We have cassettes, we have flyers, we have videos, but we don't, a lot of that stuff, especially videos, we really don't have the 70s.
Yeah.
In the hip hop context.
Yeah.
But we have, at least 79 and on, it starts to get a lot better. But we have cassettes. And then we think about the people who are the archivists of these receipts, these visual receipts, these audible receipts. Again, I just did a couple of things. So we definitely think about Joe Conzo, the visual receipts. Okay, so he happens to be a Puerto Rican. Don't make a big deal about that. I'm just saying, first of all, he's a human being. That's first. And he wasn't a hired photographer. He was from the culture.
Right, someone who loved the culture and lived the culture. And knew and was smart enough to be like, I'm looking at something that people are going to want to see in the future,
Right. Then you think about, Tape Master Sammy and the Cold Crush and those tapes. So we look at, we think of Jamel Shabazz, who's also a photographer. We think of Eddie, what's his name? Ernie. Ernie, I think his last name is Pacanoli, the Native American brother. He's also a photographer. So there's so many people that are documenting the culture that are of Latino descent, that are of African American descent, that are of white descent, that are of, Indian descent from my native. It's bigger than all this, trying to. I don't want to do that just to say, look at see what we did.
Exactly.
I don't want to do that. That's dumb.
Like To me, that was the case for about 10 minutes at the beginning. And then when the lie turned into, oh, that Puerto Ricans were racist and y'all didn't mess with us, and but that's the part that got me more. And then all of a sudden, I want to address that.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's a lie. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like Puerto Ricans and black people were together all the time. Not everybody. Everything's not absolute.
Right.
But you know,
Not
like
everybody.
that part of the lie was worse than, oh, I was a rapper back in the day. You know what I'm saying? Or I saw Puerto Rican rappers. Or you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like there's, for every Cold Crush or Fantastic, there was 5 or 6 other crews in that area that were also doing it. Not everybody, they're movie stars. Everybody's not, everybody's not the biggest movie star, but in those communities, there were crews everywhere that were doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So those people have stories too. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm one of them. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And and we've talked about this numerous times, bro. My heart is that you're always going to get the haters, and no matter what you say or do. I know for me, I can lay my head down at night and know that I've done everything I can do to present this in a peaceful way with a heart of love and understanding that we're going to disagree. That's okay. Nothing wrong with disagreeing. But it's how we're talking about grown people that are in this chat, right? These are grown people. Like we should be able to dialogue without getting so disrespectful. But at the end of the day, I know what my mandate is. And my mandate is to just continue to talk about history and to document the history the best way that I can, and then leave the rest in God's hands because I can't control people, bro. I can't make anybody accept what I'm saying, like what I'm saying, and sometimes you get heated. Sometimes the button gets pushed so much that you come out of yourself, and it's like, man, that's not me. I don't want to be acting like that.
Yo,
So
but
that's what I want people to understand.
In a way that's kind of how you could tell who you need to pay attention to. Because if I'm telling you a history that I know about, and then your answer is F you a sucker, you a tether, so you insulting me. So that means you don't want to have a conversation.
Right.
So that's cool because that gives me the high road to check out, because you don't want to have a conversation. You don't want to learn anything. You know what I'm saying? That's why I never went to try to debate anybody. Like I did the Cast podcast, that was among friends, and we had a good conversation. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like I do my talking in the music because then you could either play it or not play it, but I could always refer you to, like the Ghetto Brothers song. It's like it wound up being like a trilogy.
Right.
The Latin breakdown chronologically, it's like You Must Learn talks about the history of Puerto Rico. Then the Latin breakdown talks about the 40s and the 50s, and then the Ghetto Brothers talks about the 70s and the 80s.
Right.
And You Must Learn winds up talking about the rest of so it's like all the information is there, and I don't have to argue with anybody. I don't have to just keep doing what you're doing, bro. Like at the end of the day, the videos are all going to be there. And sometimes I comment, and sometimes I don't want to waste my time commenting, but sometimes I like to leave an intelligent, positive comment to somebody who was maybe disrespectful, because at the end of the day, it's not about that individual. It's about the 50 other people that are going to read through and see, wow, there was a conversation had, and this guy said, peace, brother, we can disagree. And this guy said, oh, you're a colonizer, or you're a tether. You know what I mean? So people know, at the end of the day, people are going to know who they need to listen to and who they need to give credence to.
It's about, it's about taking the high road, right? It's about, taking the humble road. And this is why I keep saying to the people who are supporting the channel in the chat, don't engage them. They're going to be here. I'm not going to get rid of them. I'm good. Freedom of speech. Do your thing. Say what you want to say.
Plus, they're helping the algorithm.
I know you don't agree with that. I know you don't agree with, but I don't have the time or the energy. I'm trying to do a podcast. So I'm just saying to the people who are here that support what we're doing, and those are both Black and Puerto Ricans who support what we're doing. I
Trust
would
me,
say don't
I
engage.
definitely got some Puerto Ricans out there who don't like me either.
Yeah, don't engage them. And my prayer is one day we could have intelligent conversations with these same people and sit down and break bread and build. And I always gonna agree, but you know what? You're a cool dude, man. I don't agree with you here, but I see your
Right.
heart. I can see you.
But you know what's funny? Like I'm in a unique position that I'm around all these guys. I'm around the Fearless Four, the Cold Crush, the Treacherous Three, all the time, and nobody's ever talking about it. This is like something to laugh at.
Right.
Them, you know what I'm saying? Like we never it never came up.
Right.
It
never came up. This was not a conversation. This was not a conversation that we initiated. This was a conversation, and we don't need to get into all that, but this was a conversation initiated by somebody else, and a response to that initial comment was, the first response was really, your boy, but then the second response was Joe. And he's like, what are these people talking about? So he's just responding to what was already said by somebody from somewhere. And it ended up 3 years later, and we're still, but I'm glad that everything happens for a reason, right? So there's a lot of things that wouldn't have happened. We wouldn't have not gone deeper and dug into the weeds a little bit deeper to find, whoa, wait a minute. Look at this. Look at this.
Yes, sir.
The Latin breakdown wouldn't have happened. I mean, all
Exactly.
those interviews, like what?
Yeah, definitely. Because like what I learned from you and Randy in the Latin breakdown, like that was big for me.
Heavy, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I had no reason to look it up, and then now I do, and now we have a reason to talk about the Ghetto Brothers.
Exactly. And shout out to Topaz. Again, my man Lightning Murphy, and I've had these conversations with him, and he makes no apology for his position on hip hop begins. The genesis and the spark of the culture begins with the Ghetto Brothers and the gangs.
For real. And the Ghetto Brothers specifically,
And this is somebody, and I asked him this. I said, like, you were around? He's like, yeah. I remember when they talked about him being killed. I saw the Ghetto Brothers all. I was part of the gang culture. That's why he's in Rebel Kings. So this is not just somebody who's read about it.
Right.
This is an eyewitness. He knows these guys. So that's heavy, bro. That's and that's what's amazing about the internet and social media. It's a blessing and a curse, because at one point you got people putting out all kinds of information with these sound bites.
Right.
I've had people tell me, don't go deep into the weeds like that. No, that's what we need to do.
Right.
If we don't, what's the point? We got to go deep. Yeah.
You could always chop up little sound bites for people who only can digest 30 seconds of information at a time. That's fine. But now you got to go into the weeds. You have to lay everything out and make it clear for everybody,
Yeah.
And whoever doesn't want to look at it doesn't have to look at it. But anybody to me, I've always seen it as, if I'm stuck believing something and I'm wrong, and somebody, even my adversary, blesses me with the blessing of truth and information, I appreciate that as a man. And I'd rather be like, damn, I was thinking this thing for all these years, and I was wrong. I'm so glad to be relieved that I don't look like an idiot because I'm stuck thinking this thing because I'm just stuck in my ways when there's truth out there. So like, I would be wanting to go look at the Rubble Kings and be like, wow, that happened. Look at all these people. Look at Bambaataa. Look at Kool Herc talking about it. You know?
That's right. That's right. You know, and that's the beauty. That's why when I showed, you know, Karate Pete today, you know, Peter Williams, and I showed, you know, this is a black spade. This is an original, one of the original black spades. This dude is telling you in no uncertain terms, it wasn't just us. It was the 70 Immortals. It was the Ghetto Brothers. It was the Savage Skulls. And he said, anybody that says it was just one is wrong.
Right.
So what do you do with that? What do you do with, you know, what do you do with somebody like Cool DJ D? You know, I did the whole thing on Herc the other day, and Cool DJ D in an interview, a written interview, says, you know, when we talk about the sound systems in Brooklyn, and I'm part of Fantasia, those dudes were Jamaicans who were building these systems, and they brought that from their native Jamaica.
Yeah.
But nobody, I mean, okay, he said that. What do you do with that? You're going to ignore that he said that? He said that.
Right. And how about this? When I was coming up and I was a kid, like, you know, I started in 78, 79, but when I was a kid, I seen the Jamaicans coming out with the giants just rocking the whole block. And then eventually I started seeing hip hop jams. So it wasn't even like some kind of confusion. Like they used to be out there with the, you know, it was mostly behind somebody's house or somewhere, you know, on a block party.
Right.
And it was the Jamaican sound systems.
Right.
You know?
Right. It is what it is, bro. It is what it is. And you know, I want to be clear. As what I always say, we'll end with this, right? As what I always say, that in no way, shape, or form am I even suggesting that Black Americans had nothing to do with nothing. No. I put them first. I say the culture is Black American, New Yorican, Caribbean, primarily Jamaicans. Were there Cubans? Yes. Were there Dominicans? Yes. But the majority at that time were Black American, New Yoricans, and Caribbeans. So I've always said that with unapologetically. I've never said Puerto Ricans created hip hop. No, we didn't. We didn't create this alone. Neither did Jamaicans create this alone. Neither did African Americans create this alone. We created together.
Yo, but not for nothing, Fat Joe, you know, Fat Joe, his you know, his brand now is the capping, exaggerating this and that, but he didn't do us any favors when he said it was 50-50. Like, oh, come, right, don't do that. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you could look at the ratio of the groups. That's what I go by. The groups that made it to the top and rocked the parties and made the history. Fantastic, Cold Crush, those guys. Even on that, just as far as the music is concerned,
right? That's the
we
music.
had representation there, but Cold Crush didn't have 3 Puerto Rican members and 3 Black members.
No,
you know what I'm saying?
No.
It wasn't half and half. You know what I'm saying?
No.
So Joe didn't.
And as
Joe
you as
didn't do us any favors with that one.
No, but I think as you as an MC, because this is where the conversation always ends up. It ends up with what we're really talking about when all these guys talk, whether it's you know, many times, whether it's Busy B or whoever is talking, you know, Debbie D, they're really talking about the DJs and the MCs.
Right.
That's
and
not
that's where I get in trouble because
yeah,
you know, I'm coming from the MC, you know, but
because you're an MC.
Right. But like the breakdancers, that's I was pretty close to half the culture right there. Maybe more at times because a wider, you know, only a certain section of the population was at the jams listening to the music.
Right.
But the breakdancing, you could be walking down the street and just be amazed by what's going on.
Right.
You know?
Right. And that's where I take it from. You know, I'm a firm believer that the X factor, as they would say, the X factor of the culture, the DJs specifically who played breaks, beginning with Herc, and the B-boys that danced to that. In other words, I love what Charlie Rock said. Charlie Rock said, listen, if there were no B-boys, there would have been no reason for them to play those breaks. They would have just been playing music. They played for us. They played for the breakers.
Right. That was the motivation behind, like, before the MC. The MC just kind of tagged on later.
They
now the
come
MC came to the
2 years
forefront.
later.
You know,
Yeah.
like the MC wound up coming to the forefront. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I think it was Legs that put me up on some information. Like, I kind of like to explore the transition. Like, it's like there were people who were playing records, just playing records, and then there's people who started playing records like that had these breaks, and then there was a DJ named, I think, John Brown, who played so he played only the records that had breaks, and then Kool Herc played only the breaks. So it was like the guys playing records, including these soul records that have breaks, a guy's playing only those soul records that have breaks, and then now a guy's playing only the breaks, and then Flash puts it all together and makes it so that the MC can come in. So to me, that's where hip hop was born. You know, like there's a birth date, and then but there's a gestation. There's the 9 months that the woman is pregnant. So all those things were leading up to that. But the baby didn't come out until there was a DJ, an MC, a breakdancer, and a graffiti writer. So the MC was the last to join and seal it up.
Right.
And then the first wave that came out, there was Puerto Ricans.
Right.
So
And I
just
think,
go back to that.
I think when we talk about people like John Brown, I know the John Brown story. I've interacted with him somewhat in the comments, and I don't deny he was a DJ. I've never heard him say this. I've heard other people say this about him. So he's never said this. And I've asked him point blank. He never responded.
Right.
But when you got some, people saying that he was playing break beats for B-boys in 71 at the Plaza Tunnel, my question is, again, talking to Frank Rojas, who says, around those same years, 71, 72, you had, again, the guys downtown. You had, Francis Grasso. You had Mancuso. You had Nicky Siano. You had Alfie Davidson. They're playing the same records. They're playing.
Yeah, I think the only distinction was that I believe, because he sent Legs sent me the screenshots of a book, and I was like, I'm gonna get the book, but the book is like $400. So I was like, all right, I just do with the pages he sent me. But I think the distinction was,
what's the book called?
I forgot the name of the book. I'll tell you later. I'll send it to you later.
Okay.
But I think that the only distinction was that I think John Brown was kind of playing only those records, not only the break beats, but he only played records that had, at some point he only played those records that had break beats. So it's just a small part of the progression.
Yeah, and we'll hear his story. We'll hear his story soon. From what I understand, he's gonna come out and he's gonna share his story. And props to John Brown, bro. Nobody's taking, but for me and for many other people, it is not that Herc. That's the story, that Herc was taught by John Brown how to do what he did, or he uses John Brown's playlist. But when they asked him, Herc clearly says, I played more of it. He was playing James Brown. He was playing, I don't know if he was playing Just Begun. He might have been playing Just Begun. He was playing, in 71, So if it's 71, he would have had to have the version of Just Begun that was done in 1970, which is the version we feature in the Latin Breakdown.
Right.
That's the original version, and only certain people got that version. That was a promotional copy. Just Begun doesn't come out until 72.
Right.
So the one we know, the popular one, it was the same record, different label. So, again, all of these things, we dig, we look, we search, we research. I don't have a problem with that. I think I might have the book. It sounds like it's from a book called Yes, Yes, Y'all, but I could be wrong.
That might be it.
Yeah, because I got I didn't pay $400 for the book, bro.
Well, now it's 400. I don't know when you got it, but I looked it up. I was like, I ain't getting that.
You know what the cover looks like?
No, I don't remember.
Okay,
I had the book. I just kind of looked it up one day.
Is it this?
I think that's it. Yeah.
So this is an interesting book. You can see it's a thick book.
Yeah.
So this book is done from the perspective. Great book. There are some things in the book that are either typos or just wrong information.
Oh yeah.
So for instance, when Herc in the book is talking about John Brown, he puts John Brown in this book. He puts John Brown not at the Plaza Tunnel, but at a club called The Puzzle. But in other interviews with Herc says, I didn't know the DJ at The Puzzle. The DJ I knew who went to school with me was John Brown, and I knew him from the Plaza Tunnel. But this book says it was at The Puzzle. Same story, but the only change is it's not the Plaza Tunnel, it's The Puzzle. I'll take it. Maybe it was a typo. I don't know, right? We won't know. I don't think this book is, but this is the go-to book. So most of the book is, as you can see, it's like you see the black heading and then you see the regular writing. Those are these are done in interview form, right? So they'll have Raheem.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
They'll give a quote from Raheem. They'll have Grandmaster Flash and they'll give a quote from Flash. It's really disjointed. It's not a story. It's a bunch of quotes about whatever the topic might be. If it's the MCs, it's going to have Raheem, Flash, Kid Creole, Melly Mel, Kev Rockwell. If it's graffiti, it's going to have such and such, but it's just little block quotes. So I'm using this for my book, but I'm careful because I'm like, did he get this from the people themselves? Where did he get this from? That's what I want to know. And I don't know who wrote this book. Let me see who wrote this book. Oh, Charlie Ahern. So the guy who made Wild Style, he wrote this book with another guy named Jim Frick. I guess it's as simple as, and Legs could do this. He knows Charlie. Just ask Charlie. How did you conduct these interviews?
Right.
Charlie's still alive. So that would be something I would love to know, because there's stuff in this book. There's stuff in Stephen Hagar's book that, and even Hagar said, I got the information way back when, and now I'm finding out that it's not correct. He's on his Facebook saying this stuff.
Wow.
He's gonna write, because in the book he kind of tells it through the African American lens. Now he's writing and saying that wasn't accurate. It was both African American and Latino, and the Latino story needs to be told. I've been back and forth with him on Facebook. So he's like, he says he's going to do a documentary. I don't know when, because he can't take the book off the shelves. He wrote that book. That was the seminal work.
Right.
The book he wrote. That was the work. You know, that was like the first book.
Yeah, I mean, and if it's still like anything else, like, you know, he's if he's interviewing witnesses, people are saying what they want to say, whether it's true or not, whether, you know, whatever. But it's good to hear,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
all the sources, and then you could come to some kind of conclusion in your mind. And to me, it's like, if it was a court case, there's too much evidence, there's too much involvement to just act like hip hop would be the same without us. You know what I mean? Or it just would have chugged right along, and nothing would have. It just would, you know, everything is fine, just the way it is. You know, like those early groups we were all living in, you know, maybe Harlem was different, but I know in the Bronx, we were all living together. Like, you know.
And those are hypotheticals, right? Those are all hypotheticals. Like, well, what would hip hop still have existed? I don't even like to use that, because those are hypotheticals. It did exist, and we were there, and so we can't try to erase the past and say, but now let's ask this question: what if? Well,
right.
There is no what if. That what if never happened. We were there, right? So, and I don't want that to turn into this, man. But brother, always a pleasure to build with you, bro. Always a pleasure. And let's let's stay connected. Like I said, when I'm done with the piece I'm working on, I'm gonna get rocking on your piece. And can I share what I'm doing with everybody?
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. So, Prince talked about the song for the Ghetto Brothers, and so I'm going to be working on the video for that song, and I want to really take my time and really do that. But I got stuff I'm working on, so I want to finish what I started and then take my time on some of that stuff. But yeah, always a pleasure. Shout out to the chat. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm gonna stay on and just see what the chat's saying, brother, and we'll talk soon.
How do I sign out of this thing?
I'm gonna get you.
All right, brother. Good looking, man.
All right, brother. Peace.
Peace.
Yeah. So let me see what the chat is saying. And again, you know, these books are great resources. You know, I'm reading through Yes, Y'all now. I'm reading through it with a fine-tooth comb. I'm really just looking to see. I believe most of what I'm seeing. I'm not saying this is a lie. No, I'm just seeing. But how do you fix that? You can't go back and fix it if the book is, 20 years old. They're not going to grab everybody's book, and so maybe you make an updated version. I don't know. But it's all good, man. Listen, it's been great, man. Again, shout out to the chat. What's up, hits? Shout out to everybody. Again, our topic tonight was peace, unity, and love, and I think that's what the hip hop community needs more than ever right now. And whatever I can do to help. We're not going to agree. We might not agree, but we can agree tastefully. We don't have to agree and become enemies, and that's for children. We're not children. So anyway, thank you for tuning in. I'm out of here. I'm getting ready to go to work in the morning, so I'm about ready to get some rest. But peace, y'all. We'll talk on the next episode. Remember, this Tuesday we are going to be doing. I don't have it up, but we're going to be doing a Bible study this Tuesday at 7:00 called Evidence That Demands a Verdict. Don't forget the book coming out officially December 25th, 2026. That's the release date, December 25th, 2026, Hip Hop History, Origins, and Elements. This is not the official book cover, but it's something I'm playing with, and but we'll have the official one soon enough. And I'm liking this one, so I might play with this. But yeah, y'all give me your opinion. Grace and peace, y'all. Good night.